Hey guys, it's Tim coming at you with a review of the latest DC original animated movie, Batman: Gotham by Gaslight, based on the Elseworlds tale of the same name by Brian Augustine and Mike Mignola. Set in Gotham, reimagined in the 19th century, our story pits Batman against Jack the Ripper, who is hunting down women on the poor side of Gotham. Batman must figure out the identity of this enigmatic figure with the help of Selina, a circus performer turned actress who sees herself as the voice of the oppressed. It's hard to say exactly what I think about this film. I'll start off by saying I've never read the book this is based on, so any liberties they took with the story I couldn't say. Though I have seen the artwork for it, and I can say the style of this film doesn't hold up to it. The issue there is that it lacks Mike Mignola's heavy use of contrasting shadow, so the visuals don't really strike and pop in this film like they do in the book. Because of this, everything looks murky and washed out, which works for the time period, but it's just not especially visually interesting. On the note of design choices though, the character design in this film is fairly similar to the Batman, which does help it stand out a bit from other DC animated films, which tend to use a variation on Bruce Timm or Phil Barrasa's styles. In terms of plot, it's pretty basic. Jack the Ripper is killing women and Batman has to stop him and find out who he is. In that way, the movie feels like a longer episode of Batman the Animated Series that just happens to be set in the 1800s. The movie seems to be banking on its setting carrying it, but outside of one cool scene that shows how they adapted Batman's gadgets for the time period, and a few nudge-nudge wink-wink moments where they say something solely to point out that this takes place in the past, the setting is just kind of there and doesn't feel any different from any other Batman story. The setting is also kind of confusing, since it takes place in Gotham, which is usually in the US, but could take place anywhere the story needed it to. But the villain is Jack the Ripper, who's from London, and half the cast speak with English or Irish accents, and the other half have standard American accents, except the three Robins who all have Brooklyn accents. The dialogue seems to lean towards this taking place in England, which it should if they're bringing in Jack the Ripper, but it's like they didn't want to force the named actors to do English accents. It's not that big a deal, it's just kind of distracting. Even with the plot as basic as it is, it doesn't feel like we spend enough time with our characters, which makes none of them stand out, and the revelation of who the Ripper is doesn't really carry that much weight because of it. Most of the side characters get maybe a scene where they get to do something, but then they just fade into the background and re-enter the plot as they're needed. We spend most of our time with Bruce and Selina, but even they don't feel especially fleshed out, and I wouldn't understand anything about them if I wasn't already familiar with other versions of Batman and Catwoman. The voice acting, despite some odd choices, is very solid. Some of it can be stiff with the lines they have to say for the time period, but for the most part it works. We have Bruce Greenwood back as Batman, and Jennifer Carpenter makes a pretty solid Selina, even if they didn't trust her to sing. Overall, the film is just kind of forgettable. It's not bad, but nothing, not even the time period, makes it stand out. I give the film a 6.5 out of 10. Thank you guys for watching, and if you want to hear more reviews like this, feel free to click that subscribe button and the bell next to it to be immediately informed whenever a new video goes up. If you want to be up to date on our news articles, head over to hybridnetworkyt.com, and if you want to help the show get better, consider going over to our Patreon page and donating what you can.